Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user ElephantNo3139. My, male 30, younger brother's, male 28, girlfriend, female 25, said something that made me and everyone else in the room super uncomfortable. It's been months and it's still a problem. How do I get everyone to move past this? Some background. My brother, we'll call him John, and I are very different people and always have been. I'm a nerdy guy who likes playing Dungeons and Dragons and works from home coding websites. He's always been sporty and has one of those corporate office jobs where I swear half of his work is just playing golf and going to fancy lunches. We didn't always get along, but we're pretty good these days. He started dating his girlfriend, who we'll call Jane, a few years back during what was a pretty low point for me in life. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended anything but amicably, was burning out of the career I went to college for, and in general was about 2 paychecks away from having to move in with my folks. The stress of it all was taking a toll on my body, and I went from the lightly chubby I'd been my whole life to just straight up fat, and shortly after the breakup, I had an anxiety attack so bad that it put me in the hospital. It was not a good time to get to know me. I was basically the picture of an F-up older brother, but I turned it around. I got the mental health assistance I needed to diagnose and treat some long-standing issues. With that as a springboard, I started exercising more and eating better, finding cooking to be a good hobby that also led to me eating less takeout and processed food. I'm still no Adonis, still got a bit of a tummy, but I'm much stronger and feel better. I was able to quit my job and find a new one in a field that I never considered but that I found I loved enough that I'm going back to school to work on a PhD in the fall so I can pursue it to a greater extent. And finally, I started dating again. Someone, we'll call her Flo, who was a better match for me than my ex. Which all brings us to the night things went wrong. We were at a family gathering at my parents' house, extended family and all, plus Jane and Flo. So, I'm making dinner, a beef Wellington. Everyone is raving about my food. I also did dinner this past Thanksgiving as well, and also my recent glow up, my new job, the program I got into, etc. I'm smiling politely and mostly just trying to do a bunch of dinner prep while they won't get out of my way. Then Jane says, "Yeah, I never thought I'd pick the wrong brother, but I'm starting to think I might have." You could hear a pin drop. I said nothing, again, just awkwardly laughed at what I assumed to have been a bad joke. Jane's face immediately changed to the look of someone who has only just realized their F-up. John looked pissed, and the two of them left the kitchen shortly after. From what I could see, she seemed to be trying to apologize to him while he looked really hurt. My relatives said nothing, not immediately anyway. Flo just kind of winced and later told me that it was really awkward having to stand there, but she didn't know what else to do that wouldn't have escalated things or put me on the spot. That was over 2 months ago, and both John and Jane avoid me like the plague. Not even a text since then. Whenever I meet up with my relatives, they badmouth her over it. And while I think Jane did F up saying that, I really do think she was just making a bad joke. Personally, I think they're overreacting. This aside, I think she's probably the first person he's ever dated who was a fit for him in terms of personality and lifestyle. The only person being normal about it is Flo, who thinks it was weird, but like me, just a dumb thing to say. No jealousy, she knows Jane ain't my type. How do I clear the air with Jane and John and get people to stop bringing this up? I'm sick of hearing about it and just want things to go back to how they were before. Right now, it just feels like a dark cloud over all of our interactions. Well, OP, like you say, Jane did F up. Maybe she was going for a joke. I don't know what she was thinking about, but yeah, she F'd up. If I was in your shoes, and the way that I would go about it is that if we're ever in a family gathering and somebody brings it up, I would just say, you know what, that happened 2 months ago. Let's get over that, because it's not nice for John and Jane to keep rehashing that. Basically, just shut it down because it's not an issue for you. And regarding John and Jane, I don't think you need to talk to Jane at all. I think you just need to talk to your brother. If this really hit him that bad, it's because it came from Jane, and that's something that he needs to solve with her. Maybe they're having issues. I don't know. But the thing is, it shouldn't have any consequences on your relationship with your brother. And that's what I think you need to address with him. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Auntie Venom says, quote, "Whenever I meet up with my relatives, they mad-mouth her over it." End quote. Hey, let's let this go now. It's ancient history. No need to dredge it up yet again. Quote, "How do I clear the air with Jane and John?" End quote. Hey, I miss you, John. Let's get together and do X. Okay. Adam's little Wanda says, quote, "I'm not bothered by this one bad joke. My girlfriend isn't bothered either. So why aren't you over it?" End quote. Honestly, those relatives seem like the kind of people who just want to have something to complain about. And maybe just try a simple approach with your brother. Ask him to hang out one-on-one first, then with both of your girlfriends, and go from there. Salty Dog 2144 says, "Mate, your relatives don't have any other conversation starters? Why are they bent about this? Do they dislike Jane? Tell them it was a joke that bombed and means nothing. I think Jane is mortified and your brother is being a supportive boyfriend. I would reach out to your brother and then to Jane, as you plan to." Wow, this got out of hand, didn't it? Many times my mouth has outrun my brain. I have great empathy for Jane. And Plenty Difference 956 says, "It was a joke, albeit a bad joke, but nonetheless, it wasn't said with any malice towards anyone. Talk to your family and tell them to let it go, and maybe ask John out for a beer or two and talk it through. Tell him you want to reconnect. You're brothers, and at the end of the day, a silly joke shouldn't cause such a problem between the two of you, and then maybe the two couples can have a meal together to show the rest of the family it's all out to rest." And Opie responds, "That would probably be a good idea. I'll message him tomorrow and see when he's in town." Opie's in-post update. "I messaged John. We're grabbing a beer over the weekend. We'll update later." In the meantime, some clarifying information for some of the other comments. Jane is a very nice person and she really cares for John. She's been with him through some difficult times, including a period where work separated the two of them for 3 months and they are otherwise attached to the hip. She does have what some call a lack of filter. We've known that for a while, but she'd absolutely never leave him for me. For why my relatives won't let it go? Probably because they're a bunch of old Italian Catholics who like to gossip. Which, incidentally, is probably why they didn't like the joke in the first place. My folks and relatives don't favor one of us over the other, though admittedly they do understand my brother's career path better than mine. I agree with a number of comments that the impetus of the joke was that I'm a good cook, especially when it comes to celebratory feasts. John is okay in the kitchen, but he's the kind of guy for whom a fancy meal just means picking up a more expensive cut of steak. I really don't think it has anything to do with me being the hot brother now, as a few comments suggested. John and I have always looked very different. Comparing us would be more a matter of personal preference than any kind of objective hotness scale. He's tall with a runner's build, and I'm a few inches shorter with a wide build and more visible muscles, as weightlifting is my main form of exercise. Lastly, not to toot my own horn, but I've never had any issues getting dates barring the aforementioned year-long period where my life was falling apart. So I must have been doing something right. Lastly, as some have said, I probably could have saved everyone some awkwardness by playing along with Jane's comment with a "sorry, Flo got to me first" or something else similar. I go into what Flo dramatically calls the kitchen death drive while cooking complicated meals, where I'm laser focused on the task at hand to the exclusion of all else, and my response to questions tend to be short, curt, and even a bit rude. Normally, I would have tried to help salvage the bad joke, but I was searing a big expensive piece of tenderloin at the moment, so my thoughts were elsewhere. Alright, well, the community's advice was taken, OP reached out, they're gonna have a beer, so let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Met up with John at a sports bar we go to sometimes when our dad is in town. Shot the crap for a little bit before I asked him if everything was cool. He didn't really know what I was talking about at first. I had to remind him that weird thing at the family dinner, and he immediately knew what I was talking about. I asked if we were alright, if they were alright, and lastly, what we should do about our nosy Catholic relatives gossiping about all this crap. First off, he confirmed what I, and mostly of y'all, thought was true. Jane was talking about my cooking exclusively. She's a big fan. It's actually the reason she came to the gathering in the first place. So, that's good to hear. Nothing to do with my physique, though John did congratulate me on the additional weight I'd lost since the whole ordeal. Second, John's issue with Jane's joke had nothing to do with the idea of her leaving him for me, or that he'd lost some prestige as the athlete in our family or anything like that. Something I didn't mention in the original post because I didn't think it was important is that John and I grew up middle class, while Jane's family is loaded. Not billionaires, but she graduated from an Ivy League college with no student loans, which she's turned into a well-paying and highly specialized tech job. She and John go on lots of vacations together, have a very nice apartment in a very expensive part of the city, all that stuff. The thing is, while John does pretty well for himself at work, he's not making nearly as much as she is and doesn't have old family money to fall back on. Trying to keep up with her has been putting a significant dent in his savings. Apparently, he's been psyching himself up to talk to her about how they may need to make some lifestyle adjustments so he can put more money away in savings, and was worried how that might go. Hearing her say that I might be a better option after hearing about my new, to his mind, high-earning PhD program was the sort of thing that came at exactly the wrong time. So he had to walk away. I did have a little laugh at that. This PhD will open a lot of doors for me, but it's definitely not going to make me a millionaire. Adding to the sting of that, while he and I don't have much of a rivalry, he does still have some insecurity about me being the smart one of the two of us. I say this with all the love in my heart. John is an extremely intelligent guy, but you'd never know that from just talking to him. He's a whiz with numbers and knows more about corporate finance than nearly anyone I've ever met at any age. He also speaks with the vocabulary and goofy demeanor of a frat boy. So, on top of the anxiety about his rich girlfriend thinking he's too broke to hang out, he was a little frustrated about the idea of a doctorate putting more perceived distance between us. He apologized for that jealousy. I told him it was fine, and if folks were giving him crap, he could tell them he wasn't going to look over their stock portfolios anymore. He also said that he and Jane spoke about the money and she took it very well. The reason he hadn't been in touch lately was because they'd been looking for a more affordable apartment to move to when their lease is up. The only thing that was left was how to handle the extended family. Apparently, John didn't know they were still on about that, largely because whenever he and Jane would see them, they just talked about how Flo has too many piercings and swears too much. That gossip was news to me, so we mutually said, F him, and decided to continue not really letting what they say about our partners get to us. Instead, we agreed to spend more time just the four of us. And before we left for the night, John did ask me for a few of my recipes. Well, OP, I have to say, this is a good update. There wasn't really much drama behind it. You guys just needed to catch up. You were able to air some minor grievances and everything is right with the world. So here's wishing you four the best in the future, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user Deleted. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law to get out of my daughter's baby shower? I, 47 female, have a daughter, 25. She is currently 26 weeks pregnant with her second child, a girl. Her first child, Philip, was stillborn 2 years ago at 38 weeks, a little boy. When she lost him, she asked us to take apart the nursery before she got home and get rid of the baby equipment. She saved his baby book, his ultrasound photos, and the outfit she planned to bring him home in, along with a lock of his hair in a memory box. She'd had a baby shower for Philip when she was pregnant, but her grief around his death was so strong that she couldn't handle having the nursery and baby things. We offered to return the baby shower gifts to the givers. Most kindly refused and asked us to donate the items, except my husband's sister, Rachel, 43. She made a huge deal out of my daughter being hysterical and constantly, loudly talked about how ridiculous it was to take apart the nursery. We kept her away from my daughter and only allowed her to return to family functions when she promised to stop bringing it up. We recently held a baby shower for my daughter's new girl. Rachel, along with the rest of my husband's female relatives, was invited. She kept making quiet remarks to everyone that we were tacky for having a baby shower for a second child, but since she didn't get near my daughter, I ignored it. When my daughter began opening gifts, it hit the fan. She loudly say, "If you hadn't torn Philip's nursery apart and gotten rid of everything, you wouldn't be here begging for presents for this baby." My daughter froze and just stared off into space. Tears started running down her face. I just said, "Rachel, please leave." She refused and started arguing with me. I took her present out of the pile, walked to the door and threw it out. I yelled, "Get out now!" And my husband came into the room and asked what happened. His mom told him and he physically picked up his sister and put her outside the door. Now, the family is divided over whether I should have yelled at her to get out and thrown her present. Am I the a-hole? No, and anybody who thinks otherwise is an a-hole as well. What the hell is Rachel got to be running her mouth for? Nobody asked for her opinion in the first place. If she's got some sort of an issue regarding your daughter taking apart the nursery, who gives an F? This is your daughter's grief. She gets to deal with it however she sees fit in the most healthy way possible for her. So no, Rachel definitely won getting kicked out, and I for one would move to not talk to her anymore. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Pleasant Test 6088 says, "Not the a-hole. If anything, you were overly generous by trying to ignore her cruel, thoughtless remarks prior to the final horrific outburst. Your daughter's welfare was your priority and must remain so. I can't imagine how heartbreaking the loss of her baby was, and to be reminded of that so callously is unbelievable. Your sister-in-law took a joyous occasion, one full of hope and promise, and poured acid all over it. You and your husband both should be commended for your restraint. I hope your daughter enjoys a healthy pregnancy and that your granddaughter brings you all much joy." Leviosa Patronus says, "Not the a-hole. Honestly, if she had done and said that in front of my daughter, I'd have picked her up myself and tossed her ass in the street and probably would have punched her a few times. Also, she's a wretched person. I'd cut all contact with her." And Opie responds, "We are all, both of my daughters, their partners, and my husband and me, going no contact with my husband's support. His mom is sad because it means she won't get to see us all together anymore, and the rest of the family is upset because we won't attend gatherings that include her. But I'm going to do what's best for my girls and their kids. My older daughter is so angry. She was sick and couldn't attend. She and her boyfriend are taking my pregnant daughter and her husband up to Hot Springs for the weekend to relax." And Tempting Penguin 369 says, "Information request. Why was Rachel even invited after the way she talked about your daughter's behavior when she was grieving?" And Opie responds, "The family agreed to keep her away from my daughter until she apologized and agreed to stop talking about it. She did so a few months after Philip's death and had been invited to several events since without bringing it up." Alright, obviously OP is not the a-hole, so let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. "We are having a family meeting without Rachel, while my daughters and their partners are away at Hot Springs this weekend. We'll update again after the meeting." Update 2. The meeting went well. My husband and I gave a brief summary of what happened, backed out by witnesses. The relatives that couldn't make the shower are now aware of what happened. The family consensus is that Rachel is unequivocally to blame and should not be allowed to be around my daughters or their kids. Other people in the family brought up issues they'd had with her in the past along similar lines, especially involving pregnancy and kids. Rachel will no longer be included in large family gatherings. Those who want to continue a relationship with her will do so on their own and have been informed that advocating for Rachel to be forgiven and included or feeding her information about me, my husband, or our kids and grandchildren will result in us going no contact with them as well. My mother-in-law has apologized profusely for making the remarks about being sad that she won't have both of her children under her roof for the holidays anymore. We have accepted her apology because her feelings are valid and this is sad for her. Thank you so much for all of your support. Well, it'll be good for you guys. You don't need to deal with Rachel anymore and the boundaries are very clear for everyone. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.